Hey guys, today's guest is Max Frazer. We're gonna have a nice lengthy conversation. We're really good friends, so that's probably partly why this video ended up being so long. So Max and I spent the first summer of the coronavirus pandemic in his studio, recording all of his guitar parts. We had Mac come into the studio to do the fiddle. We had Phil to do the trumpet. We had Liam come in and do the keyboards, and then Max and I added a couple of things ourselves, and that summer was absolutely magical because of all of those moments that we had after 20, 30 takes of trying to figure out the right part. When we got it, it was so exciting. So that was an incredible summer because that was the summer where the album really started to come to life. Max and I also worked at the Vault Cafe in Nanaimo, BC, so that is a music venue / a few other things. He was the main sound guy and I was the main door girl. We were a team, and many years of doing that and sharing show experiences. He also has seen me play and done sound for me so many times, and also played bass in my band for a while. So he's very familiar with my music, the songs, the structure, and he was able to provide his input after hearing it so many times, what he thought it needed. So I wanted to interview him about the album process and then also just about how he came to be the amazing musician and sound engineer that he is. Let's do this. So many of us are just like normal, regular income kind of people who are involved in music full time, and like where do you hear about those guys?
Most of the musicians in the world are those people.
But nobody cares about them, so they don't get any media. So like maybe it'd be comforting for other people to hear, you know, like whatever it is that you pursue in your life, if it's your passion, you don't have to be massively successful for it to be successful. Like I think we're successful because we are happy. Yeah, because we're happy with what we're doing and we're doing it.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, I like definitely struggle with, like I hold that belief in conjunction with like many other beliefs that are way more toxic than that. Like what you just said is like so wholesome and like what I aspire to be. Like I just want to be happy with wherever I'm at, but I'm never actually, like I never actually feel that way. Yeah, like for me, I'm always like, what's next, you know? And I think that like I'm well aware of these traps that we set ourselves. Like if you're always looking for what's next, then you'll get there and it'll never be good enough and whatever, like stuff like that. I'm aware of all these things that are not necessarily like healthy motivators, but I still know like they still motivate me. I'm like, I want to be more successful than I am right now. And it's like, it doesn't like at all trump like the just love for the art and all that stuff. Like if you told me that I was just going to like exist in this room inside a void for the rest of my existence, and like I had all these instruments and everything and like nobody would ever hear it, like I'd still just do it for the whole fucking time. Like I would just be like in here making songs forever. Like I know that. So with that, like I'm just like, cool. I'm good with what I'm doing. Like I like this. It's obviously the most important thing to me, but I just like, yeah, I don't know, probably something to do with the way I was raised and like, you know, a combination of a bunch of things, but I'm just like not generally satisfied with where I'm at. So definitely always trying to level up in the landscape of what I'm trying to do.
I see two things in that. I see a you issue, which we've talked about before, and also that it's totally natural to aim up. I feel like I'm parroting somebody, but there's like scientific evidence that we get the happiness chemical from the pursuit rather than landing at some kind of place where we're always striving for it. I mean, right now, I'm so much more happy ever since we started working on the album again, and then I got an idea for a music video, and then I got an idea for the podcast, and then like it's projects and the next thing. Like, it's not necessarily about becoming richer or more known, but it's still like an upward trajectory. Is that a word?
No, it's not, but it works.
I'm gonna coin it.
Trajectory. It really means exactly like what it sounds like it means. There's not really a lot of other things it could mean.
I'm not going to think about it too hard right now. I'm going to keep that in the back. Yeah, also to push ourselves and constantly improve, like even in an emotional or like spiritual sense, that has to happen. That fucking has to happen for me, I know. Because if I just look at where I was like 2 years ago, I was super, super fucked up. And 4 years ago, like really, really, really fucked up. So like today is so much better, but then there's always going to be new stuff that comes up for me to work on and figure out. And then life gets more exciting when I figure that out. And then there's the next thing. So yeah, the stasis is not good. So that's not what I'm like cheering for. But
yeah, no, I tend to avoid it like the plague as well. Yeah, no, that's definitely that's the bringer of pain for me. Just like being stagnant in any way.
Okay, let's just back up a little bit. Can you talk about...
Who are your parents? Where were you born?
What was your first childhood trauma?
Yeah. Let's get into the nitty-gritties, and then we'll get into the artsy fun stuff, okay?
Well, I want to hear about how early it was that you knew music was your thing, and how early it was that you just went for it.
That's a good question. I'm actually like not sure how to answer that, because I don't think that I think I probably thought about it when I was like in my 20s, and then I was like, when did I know that music was my thing? And I was just like, oh, never. Like I never thought about it. It just was. And like that is when I knew, you know, as an adult thinking about it and then being like, hold on, like when did I make the conscious decision that I was going to do this thing? And then looking back and never ever being able to come up with a single time I ever even thought about it that hard.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So it's now. It's like realizing that now. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm doing the right thing. Like I never was like, yo, do I actually want to like be a lawyer or something? It was like that never happened. It was just, It was just like a pretty constant flow since I was pretty young. Like I bought like a shitty laptop when I was 13 and installed some recording software on it. And I was lucky enough that my oldest brother, was pretty technically inclined and like showed me a little bit about how to plug a microphone into a computer and you know, like make sounds. And like how to put most importantly, how to put reverb on stuff. So you could like at least make something sound cool when you were recording with the shittiest gear in a bedroom with the shittiest abilities, like a kid that could barely play guitar, but like figuring out how to manipulate sounds early on and stuff. I just got into all that stuff really, really young. So
see, that's interesting because I didn't even know what GarageBand was until I was like 22. And so that's just happenstance. It's like you know so much about the recording side of things. I don't even know the language to use to describe the stuff that you do, the buttons you push and the frequencies you hear and all that kind of stuff. Like that was not in my realm, on my radar whatsoever until I moved in with Alex and she showed me how she used GarageBand. So it's just like happenstance in your childhood that your brother happened to be really good at it and show you. Like nobody showed me that.
I'm really lucky in a lot of ways because not only did he help me with that, but like he gave me my first guitar. I was a drummer first. Like I was playing drums already at that time, and I wanted to play drums so I could jam with him because he played guitar. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll be the drummer. So I got some sticks. I didn't have a kit, but I got some sticks, and I was I was using the kit at school, at like elementary school. I was playing the drum set on lunch breaks, but I didn't have a kit at home. I have this like really wonderful memory where I was getting into like the first song that I ever went like crazy for was Ohio by Neil Young. I don't know if you're familiar with that tune.
Me and Jim were just talking about Neil Young yesterday.
I was so young. I was probably like 9 or 10. And my brothers liked music and they knew about bands and all this stuff. And I was like, how could you, I didn't comprehend the notion of knowing about bands. Like I didn't understand even that. I was like, oh, these guys, like these genius 13 and 15-year-old boys, these fucking scholars of the music industry know so many bands. It blows my mind. And like, they're so cool. I could never be that cool. And like, I could never know about bands. And then like, I heard this Neil Young song and I was like, yo, who's this? And they're like, it's Neil Young. And I was like, cool, I know about bands now. And then I started to get into that like right then. Like I basically just like probably only listened to that one song for like 6 months. And then I started getting into other shit. But yeah, so I started getting into like Led Zeppelin and like a bunch of classic rock stuff. I was probably like 12 years old at this time, 13 years old maybe. And I was already like a classic rock, like a dad rocker for life. I was just like, only music, like no music past the 70s is good music. I just had no idea. And then again, brother was like, there's like good music that gets made now, right? People actually do make good music, like it's actually happening. And I was just like, had no idea. I just hated all the pop music and thought it was all that. And then he filled my iPod with hundreds of dope albums that were like, everything was from after the 90s, like 90s and forward. And he's just like, go do your homework. If you want to like music and shit, like go listen to some other good music, just to widen your scope. And I probably like, I don't think I slept for like a week because I just like stayed up all night, every night, just listening to music. And it's just like one of the most incredible times, everything is like so exciting and new and fucking crazy. Like I'd give anything to feel that stuff again. Like when you're young and like experiencing things for the first time. But experiencing the music that like I really connected with, because I like really did connect with that, like hearing Broken Social Scene for the first time and like modern indie bands and stuff that were like still around. And like that music blew my fucking mind at the time. Yeah, so definitely that was a turning point. And that was right around the time that I wanted to get into playing guitar and recording and stuff.
I love that you had people to feed you a diet of music like that you weren't going to find on the radio. My dad was my influence until I was in grade 4. I only listened to the country music station and I loved it because I loved music, so it was easy to please me. But then my friends got to me when I was in grade 4 and they're like, you have to start listening to much music. Like, this is lame. And then I remember the day that I finally did. And I heard that song, you gotta be bad, you gotta be bold, you gotta, like, some silly 90s song it's actually a good song. And there was just some other bangers back then. I was like, wow, just like you said, mind blown. Like, I can't believe I'm having this auditory pleasure experience. Oh, and then of course, wasn't long after that I had my Hanson experience. It's so unfair that other people have had cool band awakening experiences and mine was Hanson. So like I've had to live with that my whole life. Be made fun of. But I remember I was being babysat one morning before school and Bop, that was their big single, 3 M's and a Bop, came on and I saw Taylor Hanson and he had long hair. A lot of people thought he was a girl. He's very androgynous looking. I've always loved that look. But I was in love. It was like the first time my addict in my brain woke up. I don't remember having like addictive tendencies or like experiences until then. Like when you said you listened to the same song for 6 months, it was like that. Like it was just bop, and even somebody could mention his name and I'd probably start to cry, like just hysterically obsessed. And the serotonin in my brain was just blowing up all the time. And I was only in grade 4. Yeah, that was like the first time I really had a brain explosion over music. And it's tempting to be embarrassed about that because that band got made fun of so much just for being like a stupid boy band. However, I do stand firmly in defense of that because they make excellent music even to this day, and they've always written their own songs.
Boom. I'll have to check it out.
Oh.
I won't check it out.
Don't.
Maybe I will.
You'll lose so much respect for me.
No. If that was going to happen, it would have happened by now. You've already survived explaining to me all the celebrity crushes that you've had over the years.
Well, Harry Styles for life. I didn't get into a cool band until I discovered Ani DeFranco, probably. I was just like on a straight diet of mainstream pop.
Yeah, and I mean, the jury's still out on whether or not that's cool.
Yeah, like our political views have like kind of gone apart over the years, but still, it's like the fact that she's just so raw and such an incredible lyricist, incredible guitarist, it was like, oh shit, holy, like this really, that helped me learn how to write songs just by listening to her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like we're definitely copying. I think we're always copying forever. You just get like you get better at it, at like copying in a subtle way, and like just it becoming more of like an influence thing. But we're always copying. But definitely when you're a kid and you're writing songs, it's like blatantly copying shit. You're just ripping people off. It's like a slightly better version of playing covers, right? It's like a lot of really good musicians like got all their chops by just like playing in cover bands like every Friday and Saturday night at like some shitty pub somewhere, you know? Like Stevie Ray Vaughan just did that for years, like just played played covers in pubs. He's one of the greatest guitar players of all time. But when you're a kid and you're like learning how to play music by writing songs that are directly influenced by another artist, you're also like feeding your creative mind. Maybe you're not being fully creative because you're like stealing 80% of everything you do, say, and play, but you're still getting like sort of like the chops thing from, you know, playing songs, and that's good. And then you're also starting to grow that other part of your brain that is inventing something new based on something that you've heard, which is super fucking important, especially if you're going to be like a songwriter and not just like a cover artist or a studio musician or whatever. Like for you to be you need that creative part of your brain engaged. So yeah, I think that's kind of a cool way to start, like just by like blatantly ripping off somebody that you think is super cool when you're like a kid.
Even now, it's from covering songs that usually starts a songwriting surge. I was just talking about this with Jim too. It's like, oh, this song has this chord that I've never played before, or playing it this way, this like version of the chord that I've never played before. I remember I really wanted to play Fight Test by the Flaming Lips when I was in high school, and so I had to learn how to play C-sharp minor, and I'd never played that before.
But yeah. No, that song's awesome.
So yeah,
mystery.
Then I learned C-sharp minor and wrote like so many fucking songs just because of learning that chord. I just like, oh, that sounds so good with E and A. Oh my god, because I didn't have any theory. So I didn't know. I had to figure it out like, just by ear.
I'm sure there's something magical about C-sharp minor. Remember how I was telling you how there was this like one chord that I had... okay, I'll back it up a little bit. You remember I was talking about how there's this one riff that I had that I was like trying so hard to write a song for like a year. I was just like, I gotta write a song for this riff because this riff is so sick and it's just like it needs a song. And every time I would try, I would open up with this C-sharp minor chord. It's got like a 9 on top of it or something else too, but every single time I picked up the guitar, I was like trying to write a song for this riff. And it never came to me, but I wrote like every song on my record.
Yeah.
Like trying to write a fucking song for this riff. every song, like they're like everything ended up being in C sharp minor. So yeah, no, I've got a strong connection with that key and chord. So I feel
That's such a crazy story.
It's still and it's still like I still don't have it's like not even a muse for me anymore because I'm not trying to write it. Like I'm not even trying to write a song for that.
Maybe that's all it ever was just like this starting point.
Yeah,
magical, inspirational starting point. It was never really meant to be a song.
Yeah, I don't know what they call that in like if you go to school for writing or whatever, they'll talk about these sentences that are like starters. Like there'll be like a list of sentences. Or like this is like if you ever have writer's block, you start with one of these. Plug one of these in, and then away you go. But it was definitely like my little starter kit riff for a while there. And maybe one day, like maybe that'll be, you know, when I finally write a song for that riff, I can either be successful or just retire or something. I'll be like, that's it now. I'm done now. I'm finished.
It's over.
And then no one will care, and then I'll kill myself, and it'll actually be over.
And then you'll be really famous.
Yeah.
Did you graduate?
High school?
Yeah.
Yes. I've always been like pretty good at like making deals with people, like just like talking to people and be like, yeah, what can we do here? But like because I had dropped out in grade 11, and then I went back to the principal, and I was like, I really like I don't want to. Like I was like, I don't want to go through this whole thing. Like, can we work something out here? Like, how can I get my diploma with the least amount of resistance? And he basically was like, yeah, he's like, I understand you got shit to do or something. So if you challenge your provincial exams, which I think was just an English 12, he's like, I'll give you the rest of the credits for just like having a job and like having moved out of home when you were young and like just real life experience or something. Like, he just like fudged the numbers for me basically. Wow. So yes, I did graduate though.
You were working at Firehouse Grill?
Yeah, shamefully yes, for a while.
And then when did it switch to being music full time? Well, full time, the only job.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess you could say it was music. I was doing sound for work, but that's always just sort of been like a job. Also, like it's not really been doing live sound for bands has never really been my passion project. But it is fun, and like I'm glad that I did as much of it as I did. But I think I started doing that when I was 19.
So you were there about 4 years?
At the Vault, doing sound and stuff. And like I was running things at the Vault for like 5 years, I think.
How did you get that job?
Well, Amanda was tight with a bunch of people I was working with at Firehouse Grill, actually. I don't know. We just like kind of became friends. And then I started working there. When she first opened up the Vault, I worked there for a little while. Just doing whatever, like cooking and random shit. And then as you know, she was dating a man who was also part owner in that place. And they wanted to make like a venue out of the place, and he had no idea what he was doing. And bands were showing up like, yo, I think we're playing here tonight, but like there's no PA, like what is this a venue? And you'd be like the only person there. You'd be like, yeah, like I think some really drunk guy is gonna show up at some point and like maybe do sound for you. Like that was the vibe. And then I just started doing sound for the bands whenever I was there, just trying to help out. Like, what else are you gonna do? You're like the one who's there, and they're like, what is this place? And you're like, I will do sound for you. I didn't have any idea what I was doing either, but I was willing to try, which I think Chris Thompson told me early on. He's like, yes, 50% of it is just trying hard. And I just took that and ran. I was like, okay, man, I'm going to try hard then, and I'll probably figure the rest out. And I did. And then I eventually just started doing only that. and booking.
And just being really fucking good at it.
Yeah, I got really good at it. It's like one of the few things in my life that I'm not that humble about. I'm I think I'm pretty good at it. It's just a shit. Like, it's like, I've said this before, that I think it's like maybe like my calling, and like I just don't like it that much. Like I don't care about, I don't like look at the rest of my life being like, yeah, I'm gonna do sound for bands and shitty bars forever, and like that's gonna be the life I want to live. It's like, no, not interested, but I am good at it.
And it's such a good skill to have. If something happens, you're really good at that. You can easily get a job doing that, or even just like recording your own stuff. You don't need to spend money on another studio, even though you might want to in a pinch. You can totally do it yourself.
The recording thing is totally different. Like that is like something that I would happily do forever. Like I don't see those two things as, a lot of people just like glue those two things together.
Like I just did. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's like it's the obvious conclusion to draw if you it's just like anything that you don't, if you're not in that world, it's easy to just like make those assumptions. It's like, I'm sure I make a million assumptions. I'd be like talking to like a veterinary person and like a dentist, like a vet and a dentist. I'd be like, yeah, so you guys like work together, right? They're like, no. I'm like, what do you guys like? You guys like hang out at the office or what? And they're like, no, we actually like are completely different.
I'm going to interject for a second, because Jim was talking about how he never had a scene. He never had people to play with. He was just like this lone drunk that just like was good at songwriting and loved it so much, but just didn't have a scene at all. And it made me realize how lucky we are.
Oh, yeah.
Because we had a massive, not massive in the sense that it was like full of people, really populated, but it was...
It was a lot of the time, though.
I guess so. I mean, it's Nanaimo. It's not like we're in a huge city, but it's really, really special, or it was, or it is. I don't know. Like, it's been a while because of COVID, and you've moved, and Wes moved, and all that kind of stuff. But
I love that. Yeah, you're
wow.
Like, it was so massive, and then 2 people moved and ruined the whole thing.
Well, it's more than that. It's like,
yeah, I know.
It's a lot. It's a lot of stuff that's changed. But that was such a lucky, I don't know if lucky is the right word, but just the fact that I walked out of this very domesticated life that I created, even though I still knew people, sort of. I really knew Alex, and I really knew Brendan and like a couple other people from going to school for a semester or something. But then I was just like domesticated and in my life in recovery, and didn't have a bunch of music friends. And so when I walked into the vault, I mean, all that just started organically happening. And then I'm working there. It's like a good couple, 2 or 3 years of having a scene.
Oh yeah, it was strong.
My first time having like a music scene. Like I had a theater scene for sure in high school, good groups of friends kind of in between, but like a music scene, that's its own thing.
Yeah,
we're all friends. We all write songs. We all play on the stage every week.
Yeah, it had no right being as good as it was for being as small as it was. That was pretty crazy. That all started happening when I was a kid. Like I was 18, 19, discovering like the DIY scene, and then also in conjunction with the vault propping up and having some serious glory years to follow, like when everyone was like, yo, this is awesome. And it was just kind of this amazing like little trifecta of things, because you had, White Room and Crace and all these like cool DIY setups, and then you also had like, even the vault was obviously great, and then even like Richard Chisholm at the time, he was running things at Crace a lot of the time, but also making cool shows happen at the Canby a lot of the time, and like the Globe was happening more often. There was just like a lot of facility for shit to be going on all the time, and there wasn't actually like, it was in such a condensed little space, right? Like in any city, even something as small as Victoria, those things are just far enough away from each other that if you're at one, you're probably there that night. Mm-hmm. But in Nanaimo, it was like all that stuff was like within 50 meters. Like they were just like so fucking close, like ridiculously close to one another, that there'd be like so many cool shows happening and you're just like going from one thing to the other, and it was just like a really good little thing.
And it's not a competition. Everybody loves each other. The owners love each other.
I remember this like amazing night at Crace once when like Alex Hicks and I were playing a show with our old band Morning Dove, and it was like a pretty banging night. Like there was probably like 75 people in there, like in that tiny room. It was like full to the brim, and the cops showed up, which didn't happen that often at Craze. And like, I remember just seeing like during our set, the cops like peeked their head in, and like Katie Gilray, amazing goddess of a woman, comes with like a 2-6 of Jack in hand and just like takes that big sliding door that's like weighs like 100 pounds and just like rammed it shut and just like barricaded the door. And like obviously they were coming for a noise complaint, and she was just like, I'm just gonna close the door. And it was a thick door. Like once that door was closed, there was really never any noise complaints. But just did not let the cops come in, and just like, locked all the doors. And like we finished our set, and then everybody, like the energy in there was just like so insane, and like nobody could leave because like they were worried about the cops that were outside. So they were like, hey, everyone has to stay in this room. What ended up happening was like we were the last band that was supposed to be on, but then like they were just like, yeah, like keep playing music or whatever. And like Alex was just like I don't know, she didn't want to play anymore or whatever. And then like Dave Reed just like comes over and just like picks up the guitar and just starts like whatever, just like playing his sludgy doomy shit. And I was still on drums, and we just like played a full like improvised set. And then like Sean Patton shows up, and like we ended up playing like another set. Just playing, because him and I had like another project that actually had a bass player, but we ended up just playing the music without the bass player. That was just like honestly, that was such a fun night that like people were just like that stoked on just like noisy, shitty music in a basement for like, I don't know, it would have been like by the end of all three of those sets, like 3 hours straight of music. But that was like my entering the music scene. That was like a kid when all that was happening. And I was like, this is what it's like in a small town. Like, oh my God, it's going to be so cool when I move to fucking Montreal. And now I'm like here, like no shows happen. Obviously circumstances are different, but yeah, it wasn't like that was normal. Like that's what I didn't understand was like, I thought that was just like status quo small town music scene. But then like people from touring bands, like from Vancouver, Montreal, these cities that are like hype are all like coming through Nanaimo and be like, yo, you guys got like something really cool going on here. Like there's a good scene here. A couple people had said, appreciate this because it never lasts in small towns. And it was very true because it turned out to go downhill pretty fast, and like ended up kind of not lasting for very long, like it maybe 2 or 3 years, and that was that.
That's crazy.
As far as being like that fun, like that exciting and stuff.
Was it not that fun and exciting by the time I showed up? No,
I think it was still pretty good. It was probably like on its way down from where.
Damn.
But which goes to show that it was still pretty good, right? Like that was a good time.
Yeah, because I had a great couple of years.
Yeah, I would say like maybe even it lasted for like 4 years.
Yeah, it's really rare. Like Jim's gonna hate listening to this. Because he even said, I don't even know if that is a thing. Like people, okay, not just a music scene, but like growing up with a group of friends and you just belong, you're just part of that group. And there's just no question about it. And people will be there for you.
He doesn't believe in friendship?
No, he just didn't know if that was a thing. So we were talking about the book, The Outsiders, and how there was this crew and everybody just belonged and that was just a thing. And he's like, that just sounded so fantastical and magical to me. Like I didn't even know if that existed or if that was just in books. It made me really sad to hear that because I always had that, like all through high school, in that little stint between high school and moving to Nanaimo, and before I went to the Vault, like I always had a crew, always found people. And yeah, the Vault is really special for that because there's so many so many people, and they were all awesome. Mm-hmm. Just that was one of the things that really attracted me to that place, is that I went down there one day. I was on medical leave from my job. I was kind of like in this cloud of, I don't know what's going to happen with my life. I'm so confused and lost right now. I just ended up going downtown one day and sitting outside the vault with my friend Courtney. And I ended up being there for hours. I was outside on the patio, and she didn't even stay the whole time. But she left, and then somebody else would just drift in. And then I'm having this amazing conversation with somebody, whether I know them or it's a stranger and I'm just meeting them, and then they'd go, and then there'd be more. It just like kept flowing. It was really crazy. It felt like something was happening. Like there was an energy there. I'm like, what is going on? This is amazing. Like I'm having an amazing spiritual, magical day. And then so I just kept going down there. And then I saw the cute door guy. So I'd sit with him all the time. And then he decided he was moving away. So I was like, hey, Amanda, can I be your door girl? And that's how it all started.
That's not quite what happened.
What do you mean?
I actually believe that I offered you that job. Remember?
Really?
You had filled
Well,
in.
I remember I did make that call. Maybe she said, why don't you try doing it and see how it goes? And you were watching me to see if I was any good.
Right, you like filled in for a weekend, and then at the end of that weekend, I was like, "Yo, we should just give the job to Kendall. She's great at it." And then she was like, "Yeah, do whatever you want." and then that's how I remember that, at least.
And then you were my boss.
Yeah,
you hate that, don't you? But you're very bossy.
As your work buddy.
You told me what to do. Hey, don't fuck that up again.
Fair enough. Is that what I said? Hey, don't fuck that up again.
Well, you're pretty serious about certain things, you know, like you stay outside unless it's really fucking bad out there. Unless it's like a tornado, you're outside. It's professional. It's more professional.
I mean, like what venue do you have a person just standing? There's like this tiny, narrow little space to come in, and then you open the door, and then someone's like, "Hi, there's a bed," and they're like, "What are you saying?" And you're like, "There's a bed."
Wasn't that what it was like when those two friends were always at the door? Maddie.
Yeah, I think they were inside a lot of the time. Yeah, and it wasn't very good.
So you trained me to become like the first super professional door girl at the vault.
Yeah, groomed.
Door person.
Personally groomed. Just selected and groomed for the job. Well, someone had to do it, right?
It was great. I think we made a great team.
That was awesome. Couldn't have been better.
And then the years went on, and now you've landed in Montreal. What the fuck? What happened?
That's COVID's fault. No, I always wanted to come here. I accidentally moved to Victoria. Big mistake. No, it was a great time. But I did mean to move here. Like I was trying to move here. I was like, I got to get out of Nanaimo, and I wanted to move here. And then I just landed a job, like a really good job in Victoria. And it was like, okay, well, I can do this job and like still live in a city where I know a bunch of people.
Sound job, to be specific.
Yeah.
For a great venue. Oh, you started working at Tim Hortons in Victoria.
Yeah, I got this awesome job. I got a dishwashing gig at a really high-scale restaurant. They gave me like free leftover. They let me eat the food off the plates. Unlike most dishwashing jobs where that's really faux pas. They were cool with it. I could eat the steak off the bone at the garbage bin.
Let me just ask you, what was one of your favorite bands that you mixed for, or you did sound for at
Upstairs?
At Upstairs Cabaret, yeah.
That's a good question. I always really liked working with Himalayan Bear. Got to do a couple of those shows. I actually did sound for this weird band called Broncho, BRONCHO, who I guess they're like really big, and I had no idea that they were anybody. And then I got I was always getting the details for these shows really last minute, and like they sent me the rider and like all the specs and everything, and like the day of the show. And it was like a sold out show, and sold out like in that room. It's like a 500 person room that's like pretty small. So it was like really stressful and intense when it was sold out, and it was just a fucking thing. And it was always like super fun and exciting. But these guys were like the most like stoned, out to lunch, hilarious weirdos. Like all, like not even like young stoners. Like these guys were like seasoned, like 35-year-old stoners, all with such different personalities. Like they're all like, one of them was like the girl bass player was just like so like way too cool for school, and just like had a real like leather jacket, heroin chic thing going on. And like the singer had this shirt that was like, it was like a t-shirt that like went down to past his knees, and just like they had a really funny look, and they were just funny people. And I had no idea what to expect, and I looked them up, and I was like, oh, these guys are huge. But like big bands come to Canada and play somewhere like Victoria, and like they play a small room because like Canada just sort of sucks for that. You have to be like stadium big to not be playing a venue like upstairs in Victoria or in Canada. Anyway, that was one of the best shows I've ever mixed. It was actually super sick and very fun, and I really enjoyed that whole night. Was awesome. And they were from LA and brought a bunch of other weird LA bands to open for them. It was just a wacky, funny night. But I did sound for Devotchka, which is like one of my childhood, huge bands from my childhood that like, when I was talking about my brother filling my iPod up when I was a kid, like that was one of the bands that was on that list. That was really magical working with heroes of mine. It was hard like working there because it was like a good venue, but it was sort of this weird room that like a lot of people booked at because it had such a high capacity. It had a high capacity for what it was, which is like a shitty bar venue, basically. So most like big bands that would show up and play there would be like really disappointed by it. They'd like walk in and they'd be like, oh, this fucking this shithole, right? And like I'd be like, hey, like so nice to meet you, blah 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 blah. I'll be running the show for you tonight, and they're just like already like, I hate you. Like they just like hate the venue, right? So like I was dealing with that a lot of the time. The band was amazing. They were so nice and like so lovely. And like they're like sitting there, and I was like, like the first time I ever played on stage, like I sang one of your guys' songs, like at an open mic when I was like 15. And I was just like fanboying so hard. And they were like, the singer like turns to me and he's like, I don't want to hear that. And I was like, okay. And he's like, oh my God. That makes me feel really old.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, he's joking. It was cute. It was funny.
It's really risky to meet your heroes. I mean, not to say they're necessarily one of your heroes, but it is risky.
Yeah. Like I think it's always kind of fun though. Like when I met Julia Holter in Vancouver, she's probably one of my heroes. I was so awkward and brutal in that interaction. And she was too. She was like really uncomfortable, but not in like a I hate this, I don't like you kind of way. She was just like also an awkward person. And our interaction went horribly. Like it was just like uncomfortable. Like she was up on the stage and I just like reached my hand up like I wanted to like touch her hand or something. And like I had gone to the bathroom when everyone was leaving, and like by the time I got back out, everyone was gone. So like she was just like packing up her gear on stage, and I was like, okay, like I guess I'm just gonna talk to her because I just have to. And yeah, it was just a terrible interaction. But it's like it's only pleasant for me thinking back. I'm still glad it happened because it's just funny. But I guess if it had gone like if I had like reached out my hand and she had like slapped it away and spat on me and called me a peasant, then perhaps I would not think so highly of her. So I see what you're saying.
Yeah. It happened to me just once. I had a negative interaction, but I've had lots of other interactions with this person that were super positive. So like it didn't ruin my experience with that artist. I got to meet Hanson, and that was like really fast because it was, they're super celebrity. And it was like, all right, you got 5 minutes, and there's 3 other girls, and we're all just like, blah, 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 I love you, and can you sign this, and let's take a picture, and then it was over.
Did you like pay for like the meet and greet thing or something?
I won it. I won it.
Okay.
Yeah, it was amazing.
That was actually one really funny part about the job at Upstairs was that we had enough big-ish rappers that would offer that meet and greet thing for money, and we just didn't have the facility for it. Like there was never a good room for it. There was like this shitty like handicap bathroom that they used to put. And, like,
oh my God.
That's like the only place that they could put like the artist with like a table and like a little meet and greet setup. So people would just like pay like $100, whatever. I honestly have no idea what it costs, but I'm assuming it's $100 to $200 to get this ticket with a meet and greet thing on it, and go in there and go into this like gross bathroom and meet the rapper guy that you love and just like take a picture like in a bathroom. That always just was so fucking funny to me.
I did like a mini tour on the island with Shane Koizan before he got really famous. So we were already buds and had a really good time. And then he got famous and I didn't see him for a while. And he started just touring really big places. And he came to the Port Theatre. And I lined up afterwards just to say hey. And he's like, oh, hey, like, I'm going to go hang out at the Canby after. You should come hang out. And my anxiety got the better of me in that moment. I was like, oh, well, I need to go home and cuddle my dog, I said. And then Chiro gave me shit. And he's like, you need to go. So I went. And I think I was going through, like, I was having, like, a period of anxiety or whatever, just not comfortable in my own skin, and just still forced myself to go down there because I'm like, I have to do this. Like, this is a person that I respect and has inspired me and on a massive scale, like, to the point of, like, Ani DeFranco, who's just really, really impactful artist. And so I go down there and I had a lot of questions about my own career and the path in the music industry and like what it's like to go from small time to the kind of the next level. And I really wanted to talk to him about that because he was the only person that I knew on a personal enough level that had that experience, but that also would give me the time of day. But when I asked him a question, he just like shut me down so hard. I think he was exhausted. I mean, I can't imagine what the energy demand must be for him, for anybody touring like that. And also his performances are so raw. Like he's doing stuff that makes himself cry. So he's tired. He's fucking tired. He just want to have a drink and talk about nothing. And so I asked him some kind of like serious question. He shut me down. And I was devastated. I was so crushed and so embarrassed. I don't think I was able to stay very much longer after that because I just felt like I had no dignity left.
But that didn't change your opinion of him as a person. You obviously, like even just talking about it now, you obviously empathized with how he was feeling.
Yeah, I got over it. It took me a bit, but Chiro had to kind of like remind me what he goes through. And then that made me think a lot too on this topic when I was super fangirling about Harry Styles and then watching a lot of videos on YouTube that like fans would post and just like what their experiences were like and how those boys in One Direction would act with their fans. They're really good to their fans, but like I just can't imagine, like I said, the energy demand. I don't think I could handle it. Like I'd shut down and probably have just want to never leave my house. And you can't even go to the grocery store like when you're on that level of fame. Like certain people can handle it, and then I think it must be incredibly overwhelming at times, especially when you're going through your own shit. And then you're going through your own shit. Nobody knows what you're going through, and then you walk outside and then somebody is having like this life-altering moment just because they see you. Like that's so much pressure. And then to need to reciprocate that and make it not traumatizing for them, like there's just no winning in that.
Yeah, with great power comes great responsibility, I guess Spider-Man's dad would say about that.
Sometimes it seems like artists don't care about their fans, like when they're really, even like any famous people from any kind of job. But I could see when you catch them on the street, or you see a clip on the news or something of them being on the street and them just like shutting people out. Like I get that now, like having to think from Shane's perspective of what he must have been feeling just that night in the Canby. And it's like, it's not that they don't care about you and appreciate you so much, but like, they're just one person. They can only give so much to so many people. And then there's millions of people that want from you. Like, it doesn't make sense. It can't be.
Well, yeah. And it's not even like, it's not even, most of the time, it's not even like a nice person on the street that just wants to say hi to you. Like, most of the time it's some fucking asshole trying to get a picture of you picking your nose or something, you know. It's like some guy like trying to get your attention and take a weird picture of you to sell to a magazine or something. Like, if you're that famous, you know, if you're Bieber famous or something like that, then that's a whole different thing. And that just seems like a fucking nightmare. I can't imagine living that, and especially living that from the age of like 12 or 13 or something like that.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm going to say one more thing on this topic. I spent a lot of time loving Brett Dennen too, as you know, like just addict brain. Like, I get really obsessed with artists sometimes. And I wanted to meet that man so bad. I would fantasize about it all the time. And then I thought eventually it's never going to be satisfying, because to me, he means the whole world right now. I'm so invested in this one person who has no idea I exist. And so to him, I'm just a nobody. There's no way for me to be more than that. And I think once I had that realization that there's just this huge gap between a fan and a pretty successful artist, even I get that when people come up to me and they say, oh my God, I really enjoyed your show, or this song meant so much to me. Like, I really try to give them like as much validation and like attention as possible, because I know that like longing just to talk to your idol, like how intense and emotional it is. And then for them to have to meet me, like, I don't want to put anybody in that position anymore. So I think I've resolved to stop trying to meet my idols. I got to meet Brett Dennen. It was a really good experience. And I'm like, that's it. I'm done now. I'm not going out of my way to try and get people's attention, because you can really easily come off crazy.
Oh yeah. Very easy. I think I probably came off a little bit crazy with Julia Holter, and I was just awkward. But I look back on it and I'm like, oh, that was kind of weird. But I'm not crazy, I don't think.
You just reached your hand out and like looked at her?
No, but it was not much better than that. I can't remember who said this to me, but somebody said it and it was important. It was like talking about receiving compliments at any level in music. It takes energy and it takes effort and it takes some amount of courage to say to any artist, no matter how famous they are or not, anything worthwhile to say to them. It's like, if you're going to like be like, anything more than patting someone on the shoulder and saying nice set, which even then, maybe for somebody that was like really hard for them to say.
Yeah.
But anything that like, if someone wants to like take your time and like specifically denote something about what you did that they liked, that's like a pretty intense thing for someone to do. And even if it's something small, like I liked this song and your set was, or this meant a lot to me, or I thought that thing you did was really cool. That's all like a really fucking big deal. Or at least it should be treated like it could be a really big deal for someone to do that. So, because I've had issue, like I think I've also like the same as you, like tried to always be really gracious and give time to that kind of thing. But I've definitely also had times where I will have played like a pretty decent show with maybe like 100, 200 people or something, and I'm like really want to like have a cigarette after the show, and I'm like trying to get to the other end of the room, and like, you know, and it's so nice that people are like stopping you and being like, yo, like that was awesome, really did your shit, strangers, whatever, it's amazing, it's the best thing in the world. But it's like there's definitely been times when I've just been like almost just walking past you and be like, you know, and like I'm nobody. So like for me to have experienced that feeling of being like, yeah, like I actually don't care to like shut people down. Like I don't think I've actually done it that much, but even just like been on the cusp of that as like somebody who's like so not a big deal at all. Like I've even experienced some of that being like, yeah, like a few people said that already. So like, I actually just would like to go smoke a cigarette now, you know? And then imagining that on like a massive level, like when you literally have like that times like an actual million.
A literal million.
Literally a million times more than that. That's what I have to say about that.
Okay, I have two things to say right off the bat.
All right.
One is the danger in being too nice to people and giving them too much attention. I don't know if this is just a girl thing or what, but I've definitely had this issue multiple times.
Stalkers.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's not only once been serious line crossing, but many other times I've also had considerably older men reaching out, maybe just a bit too much. You can just feel it. You can just feel that you gave them too much attention, and it's an awkward position to be in because you want to be really, really kind to the people who respond well to your music, because like it means the world to you that anybody cares, that anybody likes it.
Of course.
So I do feel a little guilty about how fangirly I've been in the past, because it probably has been borderline crazy here and there.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't feel guilty about it. It's just probably good to recognize, because you obviously weren't intentionally being crazy. Even if you even were, like, maybe you were fine. Just having an awareness about just knowing that that's a give and take. It's not just like that they're famous and therefore they owe you something because you care, because you like them so much that they just owe you something. It's understanding that that's not the way the world works is a good place to start.
Yeah, that's a interesting relationship. You have a person that you've never met, doesn't know you exist, and they mean the fucking world to you, and they've like got you through your hardest times. It almost like doesn't make sense in the brain.
Yeah, I don't think that we're like I don't know that we're wired. If you talk about just like evolution of humanity, I'm not so sure that we're wired to know what that, comprehend that, it's like trying to understand infinity or something like that.
Did you say evolution?
Yeah. Did I say it the wrong way?
Evolution?
I don't know. It just felt right.
Have you always said it that way?
No, I switched back and forth.
Let's talk a bit about the album.
Okay, yeah. Let's just, anything to get away from this pulling my words apart. Let's just move right on from that.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've known each other for many years now. Well, I don't know about many, but
many years.
Lots of good times spent at the vault and whatever. Elsewhere. We were in my band for a while. We played shows, and this is like the latest evolution of things we've shared.
Sorry,
playing on my album.
Did you say evolution?
I did. I think that's correct.
Do you never say evolution?
I don't. I've never said it. I don't know if I will. We'll see.
All right. Okay.
I have to say, it was the best move I've ever made in a recording situation is to get you to play guitar. This album to me sounds like what I've always wanted my albums to sound like. I finally got the mature folk, like it's not too cheesy, it's not too, other players might kind of pull the genre in a certain way that's not really me. Still sounds good and everything, but it's like for the first time I've got a really cohesive album that feels like the sound I've always been wanting to settle into. And I can only play acoustic guitar and sing. So that's because this was the right pairing.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you feel that way. That's means the world to hear. I guess, what your music to me always needed was a little bit of, or at least when I was like, I think we were having these conversations when early days in the band, like when I didn't really have any control over what was going on, just playing bass, but just like wanted to like give it a little bit of grit and a little taste of the weird, just because I guess I'm just wired to think that way, but like also I always thought that the songs were like really the content of the songs was really conducive to like a little bit more experimentation and just like the sounds and stuff that were going, like it just like always felt like a good pairing, like lyrically and like the way that you write songs and stuff. It always felt like, oh, like the production on these songs like could just be a little bit more out there because you're not like a cookie cutter folk country singer songwriter. There's a lot more going on there. So it was super fun to like actually get to realize that a little bit with the music. That was pretty special for me also.
And what a journey. I was talking to, who was I talking to about this? Oh, I had dinner with Paul last night, and I was telling him how, thank God I was there. I didn't really get at first why I needed to be there. Well, you did your guitar parts, because in my head I'm just like, oh yeah, you just do what you do. Like I trust you. You'll make it sound good. But then realizing what your process was by sitting beside you through those endless hours, just being like, takes so long to find the right part. And then once you find it, then you have to record it many more times. So then you have one to pick from. Then you have to do harmony, and better do a bunch of those just so you can get the right take. And then maybe a third part. So like it takes so long. But how, like it makes such a difference, especially in your head, where you're so confused sometimes about whether something is amazing or really bad. You can just lose perspective. And so to have me there to react, and then you can feed off my reaction.
Oh yeah, it's super important. It would have been a different thing if, and it was in fact very different the times that you weren't there, because I did a lot of work on it without you, and that was good too. But even then I was always texting you like voice memos of what I was doing and like whatever, like just like little snippets of it. And my biggest foil, like I'm never short on ideas. I think my biggest foil is always needing someone to be like, yeah, you got it, move on, you're good, like do something else now, because I'll just obsess for I'll just go down the rabbit hole for forever. And like that's probably as an artist in general, that's probably my biggest thing that I need to figure out and work on. And it may be a lifelong journey. Yeah, we're working on it. But yeah, like super helpful, like having you there to just be like, yeah, dude, like it's good, it's great. It's all like, there's so many times when you're like, you idiot, like of course it's good. Like
I know there's so many parts that are just bangers that you're like, no, I don't know about. Like, are you fucking crazy? It's amazing.
Yeah, that was funny. And for me too, it's always like the next day, like when we're out of that mode, you'll like text me and be like, I love this thing that happened yesterday, and I'll like listen to it and be like, yeah, that's fire. And I just like, I can't believe I was like doubting any of it. But yeah, that's a crazy thing about being that vulnerable, right? I don't know, like you always seem comfortable. For me, like when I'm in your position, which is almost never, but like being in the position of being the one sitting beside the person at the computer, like I also feel very vulnerable, because I'm like, they could just like solo my vocal at any point and just like only listen to my vocals or something like that, you know, that just makes you cringe, and it's like really hard to have someone else have that kind of control. But yeah, I definitely feel way more vulnerable, like in the position of being like, okay, like I'm sitting here like with somebody else's baby trying to come up with, like, because I hadn't even written the parts, I was just like trying to come up with the stuff like right in front of you, and like that was always like pretty emotionally taxing, because a lot of ego and stuff is involved obviously with that stuff. And for me too, like I always have to forget about scales and theory and all that shit, like when I'm trying to be actually creative. Like I usually come up with guitar parts on one string, so I'm like not thinking about a shape of a scale or something like that, because I'm just like, it's where I usually come up with like a melody that's really just intuitive. Mm-hmm. And with that comes so many wrong notes and so many fuck ups. Like, it's just gonna happen. Like, you know that happened all the time. It's just like constantly fucking up and playing like gross sour notes, like left, right, and center, and wading through all that shit for the pot of gold that was always somewhere in there. But it's hard to like do that in front of somebody, because that's like why I usually make music alone, just so I don't have to do that in front of other people. But it's good. It's good to do that. And it's also good to realize that a lot of people work that way and just play a lot of shitty notes for a long time and then play some really good ones.
They're always good for a laugh, though.
Yeah, it's good, great for a laugh at my expense.
Well, you look like you enjoy it just as much as I do. Just throw your head back. Some of the songs were very difficult to make come to life. I think it took a while to figure out. Maybe Single Life Revolution was the hardest one.
Yeah.
Because that is like an absolutely perfectly constructed song, in my opinion. Just me and my guitar.
Yeah.
Except for the end. Like the end obviously needs some kind of like orchestral something, but it's very riffy. It's not just like straight chords. And I took so much time perfectly constructing the lyrical content. But then to add anything to that, I've always struggled. Anytime I bring it to the band, we're always like, okay, yeah, I guess this is good enough. Mm-hmm. But we've finally figured it out. I think it's maybe one riff you did. It was just like one or two riffs that were just so like, oh, yes.
I think we made it good. I can't even really remember what happened to that song.
It's in the verse, either the first or the second one, but I think it mostly just needed atmospherical stuff, and then just like it's just the perfect taste.
Oh yeah, that's also
thing.
we were like using like the swelled in like when we had Liam and we're just getting him to do like the weird Wurlitzer swell thing. Yeah, we put some stuff in that song. I don't even know if I would like to go on air saying how many hours I spent trying to come up with shit for that song. Like, it's actually embarrassing to think about, because it's probably something like 16 hours of of like playing that song and just like coming up with nothing, or like thinking I had something and then it just being shit, but like working on that idea for so long and then just being shit. Like that song was pretty difficult for sure.
And we never ended up doing anything with Spent All Night. I made a drum beat in GarageBand. And it's like pretty cheesy, but sort of gets the point across. I don't even remember if I've sent it to Jamie yet already, but he's pretty confident we can like fix it up. I don't know, man. It's just funny how some songs were so easy to put together. Others were very stubborn, and then one just like never happened. I'm still waiting to find out.
I think if we had more time, it would have been different. Part of this also was that
I had to move across the country.
I was moving. When we did like the last 3 days, that was like the last time I was in the studio before I like had to start packing everything up. It was like, okay, I have like 3 sessions with Kendall and then I have to tear this shit down and move. We were really down to the last second of like my time, at least. Because I think I remember printing all the stems and then that day like ripping down all the acoustic treatment in the studio.
Oh my god.
and starting to put things in boxes.
And that takes us to Montreal. And you're there why? For all the listeners out there.
Yeah, I mean, what happened for me was basically like I was meaning to move out here for a while and then just sort of ended up in satisfactory to good situation after another, where I was like, okay, now I've got this other job that I kind of like and had a good opportunity to like have a studio space at this place and whatever, and like move to Victoria and do this and that, and everything just sort of kept me on the West Coast for a while. And then COVID happens. Obviously, I work in the entertainment industry, so there's no jobs for me for the foreseeable future. I did get to do a lot of recording work and stuff over that time, which was awesome, because this seems to be like a lot of my musician friends have like never had this much money in their life. They're like, oh my God, they're like $2,000 a month. I can afford to make music. I can afford to like buy a guitar and pay Max to mix my song, or whatever. It's like so funny that it's like this crazy economic deficit, and then like all the poor people are like, what the fuck? I haven't had this much money in my whole life, which is also pretty sad. But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. So basically for me, I decided to move out here to go to school for music because I felt like I wasn't really going to be doing a whole lot over the next year, like as far as advancing my career. Like I wasn't going to be playing a lot of shows or like working that much. And it just sort of made sense to like take the time to like go into debt and get educated, because like I'm not really gonna have an opportunity like this probably again where it's like, okay, here's an actual like dark period for everybody. Because part of the reason that I wasn't moving was sort of because I was like, oh, I don't want to like go fall behind, I was like, I'm okay, now I have a band, now I have like music coming out, now I'm like playing shows with these guys and like touring and whatever. And it sort of was just like stacking up. And I was like, oh, I don't want to lose this momentum. And then it was like, okay, now the momentum's gone for everybody. So I'm actually just going to go somewhere else and like learn for a bit. And like, that seemed like a good idea. It's a good way to like make the most of the situation. So that's why I'm here now.
And for someone who's already very proficient, what are you hoping to learn?
I just like, I don't know. I'm always going to be able to learn, but I wouldn't say I'm very proficient. I'm fine. I'm not like, as far as like the caliber of musician that exists in this world, I'm not even in the top 20, 30, 40%, there's crazy musicians out there. Anyway, I'm studying composition, and I lately have been, I've always been into some pretty like maximalist shit. Like I love big, layered, complex, long arrangements of rock music, but like I'm not a minimalist at all. I'm a maximalist. I'm just like fucking all the sounds, huge, crazy, thick, whatever. And I love that stuff. And I think the biggest thing for me that I really would like, a skill that I don't have at all that I'd like to attain is like being able to realize that kind of a vision like on paper, like as a score, like being able to like write for strings and stuff like that, and being able to like communicate with musicians in a different way to realize that, because I'm always so solitary. Like I'm just like, okay, well, I want like this like crazy string section, and I'm just gonna like draw MIDI notes until that sounds good, and like I'll just keep guessing and fucking around, which is also fun. But like having maybe a sort of more systematic and educated approach to that kind of thing could be the death of my creativity, which I'm terrified of. I'm not going to lie. I am struggling with that every day right now, being like, am I making a huge mistake? Am I overthinking and trying to overeducate something that I should just let my intuition guide me on? And to be honest, I think probably not. It's probably not the case, but I don't know. Maybe I'm making a huge mistake.
I think one thing that gives you some insurance from that is that you're already pretty established, like within yourself, of what you like, and you've had so much experience doing it without that education. You're not going to lose that muscle memory of how to do things the way you like to do things, like in an organic way or an improvised way, or just like a feel it out kind of way.
Yeah, hopefully. And I think I'm telling myself that as well. Yeah, I'm really just looking to supplement what I've got going on already. If that makes sense. That's the goal, at least. Yeah, I'm sort of glad that I waited until now to start going down this path of like seeking like greater knowledge on the subject, because maybe a lot of like 18, 19-year-olds go into school for art or music or whatever, and get filled with, because like I feel like I'm sort of good at like sniffing out some of the bullshit now. Like teachers will say things that I'm like, yeah, but also this, and like I'm confident and I'm comfortable now, like with myself and with that kind of thing. Where this is kind of a different example, but for instance, like one of my profs and I had a meeting a couple of days ago where I'm terrible at notating music, right? I suck at, you know, this. I'm terrible on paper, and like I had made a bunch of mistakes on an assignment, like a harmony assignment, and he was like, we're gonna have to have a meeting and like figure out if you can like actually hack it, you know. And I was like, okay, I get it. This guy doesn't know me. He doesn't know that I have any abilities whatsoever, and he just sees a bunch of fuck ups on paper. So I get it. No, I didn't destroy me or anything. But during our conversation, I'll spare the details, but basically there was an assignment with a bunch of rules, like you can't do this and you can't do that, and you can't do this and you can't write this way, and you know, whatever. And it was like the idea of the assignment is so you understand the rules and you can work within them, which proves that you know what you're doing, right? Instead of just randomly assigning notes. And I asked him foolishly, because I knew he was really into this like philosophy that he was spouting. I asked him foolishly, so is one of the rules that you can't do X? And he's like, no. There are no rules in music. There's no rules in art. And I was like, no, I get it. Like I was like, no, you're not understanding me. I was like, I understand that there's no rule. And he's like, no. What I'm trying to tell you is very profound. And I was like, yeah, no, I fucking understand. I've made art before. I actually get what you're saying. Like, I understand that you're saying that there's no rules. We just use rules in school so you can, you know, whatever. And like, I was insulted by the notion that he felt like he had to tell me that there was no rules. But some kids like don't know that shit and can like, and they're so impressionable that he probably could tell them that there are rules in art and that you have to follow them till the day you die. And maybe they would have just been 18 and be like, their professor told them that and then followed that till the day they die. Like, I don't know. But it feels a lot better being in that sort of institution, like having some sort of ground to stand on, you know?
Yeah. And that's one thing I've always thought was really cool about you, is you're not very impressionable. You have a pretty strong sense of what's good and what's not good. And I know that's a very subjective thing to say, but you're pretty comfortable in what you think is good and what's not good. And you can say it in a way that's, I'm impressionable, so I'm just like, oh, okay, that's shitty. That's good. But I trust right. I always trusted your taste. Like, it was like, I knew it was safe for me to be impressionable around you.
That's a dangerous position to put me in.
I know, but you do give off that vibe. Like, you have, I think that's like one of your strengths, your like street smarts. Like when you said you're pretty good at making deals. Like, it's something about just the way that you present in the world. You've got a certain energy, a certain vibe, but also
people trust me when they shouldn't.
I think you're being humble. It's not just empty arrogance or anything. You actually know what you're talking about most of the time, I'd say.
I hope so.
When you don't know what you're talking about, you generally say that.
I try to do that the most. That's very important, to know when you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Yeah, I could be like endlessly critical about like 90s psych and alternative music, and then like someone could be like anything about like classical music or any. I would love to pretend that I know shit about that world, because I like some Debussy and whatever, and like I'll like throw on classical music every once in a while, but like I don't know shit about that world. And if someone was to ask me about that, I would not pretend to have any real formed opinions on the matter, which I think is important. But yeah, I think I know what I like aesthetically. I think that's pretty well established for me, which is obviously also subject to change. But going into an institution, like having some idea of what you like has to be crucial. Like there's no way that isn't important. It almost feels like it's irresponsible. And I don't want to this is something I don't know enough about to not be talking at my ass right now, but it almost seems like it's irresponsible to indoctrinate like young artists, like 18-year-olds, and like tell them what good is, because it's almost robbing people of like an opportunity to go figure that out for themselves and maybe have like a new perspective or something actually interesting instead of just what some 60-year-old is telling you is good at university. Who's been telling the same thing to the last 30 years of students, and like what are they doing? You know, like the whole like art school system. I'm like very, I want to say I'm critical, but I'm also like I'm questioning the whole thing. You know, there's a better word for that. I'm suspicious.
Skeptical.
There it is.
But also open at the same time.
Yeah, no, I
think
open
that's a good way to be in general. Yeah, because I think by nature I'm pretty naive. I am a really naive, impressionable person. Not as impressionable anymore, but with music, I mean, I can't help the fact that about the things that I like. Like, I know there's not a lot of people who would say, yeah, Bought by Hanson changed my life. I just mostly get made fun of all through my life for that. And then most people don't understand why I love Brett Dennen so much. Like, his voice is just, I mean, sometimes those live performances are rough. But that's exactly what I love about him. Is that his voice is not that good. Sometimes it is. It's weird. Over the years of listening to him, he'll have just such a good performance. And then other times his voice is cracking. He's way off. He's straining. Like, he's not a professional singer, but that's something about his voice is exactly what I needed. Oh, shit. Andrew Hollywell's calling me. Decline.
Oh, buddy.
Nothing personal, man. I'm in the middle of something. I'm going to take Edie, and Tristan and I are going to go down to the waterfront and walk around. Because, like, there hasn't been a lot of mobility in the last couple of days, especially for Edie. I've been busy doing podcasts and then editing them obsessively for hours afterwards and just, like, not doing anything.
Usually people pay other people to do that.
Yeah, not in the DIY world. When you don't have any money and COVID's run out, the CERB. I'm so poor. I don't know. I'm going to pay my rent. I was fucking balling since March.
Yeah, no, a lot of us were. I'm feeling that. I'm like not working. I have my own apartment. I have no intention of getting a job. We'll see how long this lasts.
Well, you got all that money I gave you.
That's gone. That's already gone. That got me here. Thank you.
This feels like a really good place to wrap up. Kind of covered your life story, interweaved me in there where necessary.
Did I do that enough?
Oh yeah. Well, it's mostly about you and the album. So I think that was a nice marriage. I did want to ask you one thing. Just to be self-centered, what's your favorite song on the album?
I think probably Aoife.
Really?
Yeah. Okay, so that was my favorite one to work on. And that's the one I was thinking of when I said sometimes it went okay when you weren't there. Because I think I did that whole song by myself without you in the studio. That has nothing to say about work like with or without you. I think it was better with you. But that was just I was definitely in the zone that day, and it was really fun to work on, and I love that song.
That means so much to me when you love one of my songs. As somebody who respects your opinion and tastes so highly, like, oh my god, who likes my song?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it. Yeah, that one, and October is a beautiful song. Perfect. It's a perfect song, really. If a song can be perfect, that's a perfect song. But yeah, I'd say those two probably. If I had to pick, I like them all for different reasons. But yeah, those two. October was really hard to work on because that was one that even me I use that word now, but I had used that word back then too when I was like, oh, this is like a perfect song. Like this is like a perfectly crafted song. And it was like anything I did, I knew it needed stuff, but it was like anything I did, I was like, am I tainting the perfection that's already here, you know? So it's like it was really difficult to do anything to that song. I think it went okay in the end. But Aoife was just like, I felt like I knew exactly what to do to that song. And I think it turned out really well, and I'm really happy with that one. So probably that one is my favorite.
Isn't it weird when people say really nice things about your stuff? Like, what do you say?
It's the word.
Kind of feel speechless and awkward.
Yeah, it sucks, but it's also the best.
Yeah.
Which is pretty weird.
Well, thank you so much for making the best album I've ever made.
Oh, I didn't make it. Yeah, no.
Being part of my favorite album so far.
It was like 90% of the way there, and I just gave it a little push.
Yeah, just like this. Yeah. Like, took no time at all.
Just a swift little 6-month push. It was my pleasure.
Well, good luck in Montreal, as if I'm not going to talk to you like tomorrow. But
let's pretend for the fans that this is a once a year occasion.
Okay. Well, good luck in Montreal. I hope everything goes well for you.
It won't. Okay. Bye?
Yeah.